when Arlene and I were talking about what we were going to do today, I kind of thought it was a pre-given conclusion that, well, yeah, of course things are better now for women and BIPOC artists and the world of diversity than it was 50 years ago. So I wasn't exactly sure where the meat of our conversation would be. But the other day I was listening to a podcast with Judy Chicago. She was talking about her show, Herstory, at the New Museum. And I just am going to read a quick quote. She said, "There is a totally unknown, female-centered artistic paradigm that counters the patriarchal paradigm that has pretended to be art history." So it's way more than just more shows for women. It's breaking down an entire patriarchal hierarchy that we've lived with for all of time. That's a much bigger challenge, and I don't have nearly the same confidence that that's happening. So I thought maybe we could start with that.
Yes.
And maybe Arlene, if you would go first.
My name's Arlene Olshin. I'm both a painter and a leather crafter, and I am a working class dyke. And I've been out in the community for a good, I don't know, since 1960, so it's a good long time now. And so when it comes to the world of working class people, it's different than people of privilege that can have all the roads to building an arts career, and eventually became a certified addictions counselor. I mean, I worked in the HIV community, so it's like, as a working person, I couldn't just focus on doing my artwork. I was co-owner of Giovanni's Room for 10 years, which is the most outstanding lesbian and gay and feminist bookstore in the world, really. And I was active in the very first lesbian and gay community center. When we were planning this, I had to say, like, it can't be all old white women.
Right.
It just can't be. Because the world has changed.
Yes.
And it is more welcoming to a more diverse population of women artists. And we're really just at the brink of that. I mean, I don't think that very much has changed in the museums or in the universities or the opportunities to have teaching positions that are tenured. You can always get a little part-time gig, but can you really get the recognition and that is well-deserved for the work that people have put into their work? So, that's kind of where I'm coming from right now.
That's an excellent story.
My name's Alyssa Roach. I'm an artist locally, a writer, also a curator. I'm the art exhibitions coordinator at the William Way LGBT Center, which is how I know Arlene, and thank you for inviting me today. I graduated from Tyler School of Art in 2022, so I'm like very early on in my career and like very happy to be surrounded by people that I look up to so much in Philly. The patriarchy. What's that? I'm originally from Jamaica, so like as an immigrant as well, I feel like I was always told that there were so many doors that could potentially be closed for me in terms of going where I wanted to be in my career and as an artist and so many other things. And I'm incredibly grateful for those doors feeling open for me in a lot of ways. I've been really, really lucky to be a part of stuff at William Way. I also work at the Fabric Workshop on their development team. And before that I was working at the PMA. Like I've had a really wonderful start to a career, and I really owe it to a lot of the people in this room right now. So, yeah.
Okay, we'll take it from there as we continue.
Yeah.
Continue to unpack.
Hi, my Joyce Chong, go by she, her pronouns. I am the curator at Asian Arts Initiative. I moved to Philly almost 2 years ago for the job from New York. I was at Performa. I'm interested in the intersectionality between feminism, visual art, but also new media and performance art. And I actually worked with Judy Chicago as her research assistant for like a year when I was a grad student at the University of Chicago, not of Chicago. It really opened up like a lot of opportunities for me to be involved with a lot of feminist art and verb projects while I was working with Judy. And actually the very first show that I presented at Asian Arts is about queer art and Asian queer artists, and then how they explore their work through their own lens and perspectives. And then the second season I focused on aging, what it means to be aging for women. And then I invited Eiko Take, Japanese American dance performance artist, who's in her 70s and still active in performing and dancing. In partnership with the Fabric Workshop, so it's still on view. It was a 2-part exhibition. We were at part 1 and then they're part 2. So you can still see her work at Fabric Workshop until the end of this month. And yeah, and then another independent project coming up is I'm curating a show about Asian feminism in Harlem this May. It's gonna be, I want to tap into like or unpack the narratives of what it means at the current state of all this like crazy anti-racism, anti-hate, Asian hatred. I want to like look into how the meanings are changing and shifting compared to the 70s and 80s, and then what it means to be feminine and femininity in 2024. Through the works of Asian artists.
I think the answer is going to be that through everybody's own initiatives and activities, that's, one brick at a time is what is creating change.
I started the Print Center back in the 1980s with the mission of providing, I'm a printmaker myself, I should say that, and my MFA is from Tyler. And that's where I learned my printmaking. If you think about the 80s, and the rule of the patriarchy was particularly strong in that period because there was also a reaction in the 80s to the feminist art movement of the 1970s. So it was really working against, a renewal of the patriarchy. So, but I came to that through focus and through meeting Diane. And I was a young assistant professor at Beaver College. My department chair said to me, the women of Philadelphia are organizing something and maybe you want to go and find out what it is. Well, if you're a young instructor on tenure track, you do what your department chair tells you to do. We put together Focus, and I have to say that it's the epiphany of my life. I come from a background where I was already, brainwashed to believe in equity, parity, that everyone should have an opportunity. My parents were really wonderful. I suppose I was an old-fashioned, brought up by old-fashioned liberals, as we would call them today. And so I was probably ready for something like this, but I never thought of being activist. In that particular way, and it was I myself had never, I may have been discriminated against, but I wasn't aware of it because that's what the patriarchy does to us, and we don't realize that we're being discriminated against. But at any rate, I hadn't thought about being an activist, and so it turned me into an activist. But it also changed my life as an artist, and it was an intellectual and aesthetic epiphany for me, and I realized that a lot of the things I was trying to do in my art were things that were actually feminist, and that it was okay to do them, and it kind of gave me permission, and I really feel that my mature period as an artist came into being as a result of my involvement and focus. So it was really a life-changing experience for me. So over the years, I've had a lot of Philadelphia connections, starting with my experience at Tyler, and then I was on the Board of Governors at the Print Center for years. Then I was actually the proposer of Philographica, which was a citywide festival celebrating printmaking in 2010, based on my experience with Focus and with doing a citywide event. And so here I am now doing another citywide event in Philadelphia. There's this strong something or other that connects me to come back to Philadelphia over and over again.
I'm Gail Lloyd. I am a ceramic artist. First of all, I just wanted to thank Arlene for calling me one day and asking me to be a part of this, and I'm wondering why. Because I'm, I consider myself an emerging artist, which I came to Philadelphia years ago to go to art school. I went to University of Arts, back then Philadelphia College of Art. And I actually stepped out of the art world because, and it's one reason why I really appreciate this event for a lot of reasons. Let me just go on a tangent right quick. Because it is full circle for me to be here. I met John 40 years ago. Let's just say it's not possible. And when I was doing another career, Diane and I worked together in Iceland, working on a film. So I came to PCA for metals, to do jewelry. And I remember, I was there for about 2 years, and I remember kind of having an out-of-body experience because I realized I couldn't find my way into the art world. Back then, there were just a handful of students of color. The words thrown around then were like high art. And, like understanding, to me, all of this falls under the patriarchy, by the way. I felt like there was a lot of difficulty for a lot of the students of color, I think, to get our footing at that time. So we're talking about 1979. And a lot of, like what you were saying, a lot of students in the 60s, 70s went to art school to become painters. But a lot of the black students were actually entering in as painters and exiting as graphic artists and illustrators. And I think it was a way for the university to protect them, maybe. I don't know if it's because of the way the university looked at them or because they were like, well, getting your work in a gallery is going to be difficult for you, and get a job. Oh, the other thing that was thrown around was black art. So if you were a black person doing art, you were doing black art. I'm thinking, am I doing black art? I don't know, I just couldn't get my footing, you know what I'm saying? So I was only there 2 years. I kind of worked I backed out of that, ended up in corporate America, and decided to go back to school for film. So that's what I did for about 28 years. And maybe about 5 years ago, I decided, maybe about 10 years ago, I took a class in ceramics, and I had kind of messed around with ceramics, going to Fleischer and places like that. Fell in love with clay years ago, but never, kind of tried to, I was making money to live. And touching the clay and being able to express myself that way was so much more. Film is powerful. Film video is powerful. I'm not going to, but just for me personally, it turned my spirit around, if you understand what I'm saying. So My wife is so supportive of me as an artist. I wouldn't be able to do this if it weren't for her. Slowly but surely, you know, kind of getting my feet in the art world finally. But
my name is Gloria Davis. My art has been a journey for me because I worked with the federal government in contracting, nothing to do with art, and I was never happy. It was a struggle to go to work every day. So when I retired, I went to walk the drive, East and West River Drive, and I felt such a freedom that it really let me know that when people say if you do what you love, you'll never work, you know. So I worked all those years, but the good part about it is that I had an income, so I could pay my rent, so I didn't have to worry about the next job or anything like that. Not that I'm rich or anything, but I could make sure I could sustain what I needed to do. But my art started when I was a little girl. I was in elementary school, and the teacher gave us a bar of soap to carve. And thinking about it now, I realized that what she was doing was, the soap was cheap, you know, so if we messed it up, it didn't matter. But I got such a good feedback on my little lamb that I made that I would not bathe with it. So I kept him. I don't know what really happened to him, but that's how my introduction came to art. And what I liked about it was that it was 3D. You know, I could actually feel that it had some life to it. Fast forward, while I was working, I would take classes. I didn't care what it was. It could be quilting, it could be crocheting, could be knitting, could be painting, could be any of the disciplines that we have. So I ended up at the end with so many things that I could do with not knowing what I could do. So I started out by making dolls, and they were fabric dolls because my aunt taught me how to sew. An opportunity came to me last year to do a solo show, and I said yes, not knowing whether I could do it or not, but God put into place the person you need when you need it. They say when you're ready to, the teacher will come. So I was lucky enough that a curator, through another curator, invited me to do the show. And I had pieces over the time that I had made, and then I had to do new pieces because it was a solo show. I'm quite happy to do group shows, you know, or have a piece in it, but that meant that was me. You know, if I failed, it was me, if not. And I didn't think people would like, I won't say I didn't think they'd like it because people had told me over the years that my art was good. But at the opening, it was really wonderful. Lots of people came out. People that Gail, Linda over there, some of the piece of with women being involved, Vashti, who's with Color Girls Museum, came. She gave me my opportunity to put a piece in her museum. And that was many years ago, but it still didn't think that I had something until the exhibit at Scribe in August. My work is basically criminal justice. I didn't set out to do it that way. It started with George Floyd and COVID at the same time. I was just so anxious. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I had a quilted body that I had made, and I put him on a quilt. I'm not a quilter, I do art quilts. So I put him on the body, and I entered an exhibit in Florida. Not a bright idea, you know, because so when I got my rejection, I was disappointed. But when I get rejections, there's something better coming, you know. So I ended up adding to that quilt. And I put pants on him because he was nude, so I couldn't have him in public nude. So I put him on the quilt, and I put his hands up, and I called it Hands Up because if a black man is killed, he could be the police could approach him, and he could put his hands up, and he could still be killed. So that started it. And then I did Shirley Chisholm, getting onto the feminine thing. I was so into her as being a congresswoman, and I looked at a lot of her quotes, and one was that her hardest thing was being a woman, not being a black woman, but being a woman. So that really led me to realize, not that I didn't know that women had a hard time, but I've been so blessed in that women like Arlene, who invited me also. I've gotten my opportunities through women, you know, through a lot of women, and I'm going to do another solo in November, and that's through a woman. I have an exhibit in Atlantic City right now, but that was through Dr. Hunter, who is a black male. So, not coming from the traditional art background, 50 years, you know, I feel as though I'm probably at the right time, you know, with being allowed to have people mentor me, because I didn't have the exposure over the years. I didn't need a Diane. You know? So it's been a great opportunity. I just feel as though career-wise, I have grown a lot within a year, you know, and that's special to me. So.
Gloria, I think that's a great insight.
I didn't know I would talk that long.
That was great, and it was at the end that you really kind of got to the meat of it, which is that the opportunities came from other women, from black men. It's like you got to start with your own orbit, and then the orbit gets bigger.
Hello, I'm Diane Virgo. Judy gave a great intro, so I don't know where to begin. I think I have to begin by thanking you, John, and thanking Arlene. This is really a very cool happening for me personally, because one of the nicest parts about this project that Judy and I and then Marcia have put together is how it's blossomed. I mean, it like keeps on going. The only negative is I never get to my studio anymore, but that I sneak in every now and then. But it's really brought together so many different kinds of worlds, you know, for me. And I come from a pretty privileged white world, although my parents were immigrants. I'm a first-generation American. But, you know, I had a full-time teaching job from the get-go, right out of graduate school. So that way, I didn't have to struggle like a lot of other artist friends that I have. And I'm also white, so that's another thing I didn't have to worry about. But we all have the patriarchy to deal with on different levels. And for me, the awakening didn't happen until I went to my first College Art Association meeting. Now that didn't mean that I didn't understand about Gloria Steinem and feminism. I knew all about that, and I got it. But I didn't see the connection with the art world because, like I said, I met Marion Locks right out of graduate school. You know, how lucky could I be? So I didn't have that issue right away. So I was thrust into this meeting, being a very young college professor, off to San Francisco, and it was really very heady. I had never met Louise Nevelson before, and I did, and all these other art historians, and I found myself in a room with a bunch of art historians. I think I was the only artist, and they were bitching like crazy about the board. There are no women on the board, okay? And here they are, these women with PhDs teaching other women, and yet they're not being represented. So I'm listening, and I kind of got the spark. It really excited me, and I said, I never thought of that. Well, yeah, all my teachers were, although I went to a women's college, they were basically men. And I decided, coming back to Philly, we should do something about that. I want to do something. And right then I heard about the Corcoran meeting in DC, but it already had happened. And this was the first meeting of women artists to talk about feminism and this issue in their world. I didn't get to the meeting, but I got soon after to meet Mary Beth Edelson and Rosemary Wright, who were the organizers. Met with them, and I said, what'd you do? And I learned a lot from them. And I came back to Philly, and I said, we're going to do something in Philadelphia. Now, I'm not from Philadelphia. I still feel like, I mean, I've been here for more than 50 years, obviously, but somehow I'm still feeling like a New Yorker, a girl born in Brooklyn. And I just felt I could do anything I wanted, which apparently is not the way Philadelphians sometimes go about things. So I just decided I was going to call a meeting at my house. I asked her, well, I knew Marion already. I asked some other people, who should I invite? I think maybe Helen Drupp maybe came to the meeting. I can't remember, but Anne Darnencourt came to the meeting. Oh, Amsterdam, something Amsterdam, the collector. She lived right on Rittenhouse Square. Yeah.
Oh.
You know, beautiful, put together woman. She was there. All these people I didn't know, and some people I knew. And we decided, they weren't actually convinced. They thought, well, it could be a good idea, but you really want to do a show just about women? You think that's a good idea? And then we decided to have another meeting, and it was going to be a public meeting. Tara Robinson, I think, and Thora Jacobson were at the initial meeting. They worked at the PMA, so we had a meeting at the basement in PMA. And I don't know how it happened, but it got into the newspaper. I had nothing to do with that. All of a sudden, these women were coming, like, Judy, Jack must have read it in the paper.
Right.
So I got letters from women who couldn't make it. I got letters from, it's on our, we have it on the Instagram thing, you could see, letters from DC, New Jersey, talking about this. I can't come, but can you tell me about it? I'm an artist, blah, blah, blah. So that was the beginning of our getting together when I met my dear friend Judy Brodsky and Arlene, which also is just gratifying, is going full circle 50 years later. And having this all happen, Judy and I we talked before 24, it was like maybe 20 or 21 when we first were going to do this with Jody Throckmorton at PAFA, and then everything changed and COVID came. But it's come to be, and I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here, and I thank you all, and it's been fun.
Thank you, Diane. It's been amazing to see the city embrace this project, and to imagine 50 years ago that's a lot of acceptance back then even, and there was clearly, like, the time was right.
Hi, I'm Mei-Ling. I'm an artist and also an urban farmer. And I did so I was thinking all the time when everyone's talking. I did so many things that I don't know how to start. So I want to keep it short. I don't want to keep everyone waiting. You know, first of all, thank you, Arlene and John, having me, and everybody having me here.
I think you have to explain the term urban farmer.
Yes.
Yes. So, wow, there's a long history. So I basically was a graphic designer for a long time from Singapore, and I was art trained, and 25 years ago I moved to Philadelphia. So, but I grew up in a farm where my mom had 5 acres of orchids growing, and trees and chicken and everything. So I learned from my mom a long time ago, but now Singapore is a one big chunk city. back then we had farmers and villagers and all that. When I moved to here to continue my study, went to Art Institute of Philadelphia to continue my 2D animation technology and learn all that to contribute to my graphic design skill set. That's including my fine art training in Singapore and all that. So farming is in me, in my blood for a long time. It's just that I do not have the opportunity to, like sprout. So besides helping my mom in her garden, when I came here, after study, I've been also a graphic designer, art designer for a long time, art director for a long time. And I worked for many years on my back starting to get hurt. My spine getting hurt, my hand was shaking because I look at screen 24 hours, basically, at agency. So my doctor told me that you better change something or whatever. So opportunity came, and my husband is from Bucks County, and he know many people there, and opportunity came, and a friend have a dairy farm that offer us a space. Said, look, we have this space, you can grow anything you want and whatever, we share the food. I said, okay. So with all my knowledge and also at the same time learning at the same time because different weathers, Singapore is tropical, here is fall season. So I have to relearn everything again and by trial and error and experience. Blah, 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 I gotta cut short because it's a long history. So we started and we also start selling our organic produce at a farmer's market, locally farmer's market. So I quit my graphic design job to do that. So I quit the artworld for a while to do that, to find myself again. And with doing that, I found that I'm in the community suddenly. Because at farmer's market, you are community.
Yeah.
My farm always have people come and visit, they want to learn. At the same time, I become an educator. I start teaching people how to grow their own food, how to grow organically with no pesticide. And then one thing lead to another, I have another farm at Elkins Park, and then set up another a farmer's market with a township with my husband and everything. And then I lost the two farms because we don't own it, but the land is gone. So then I focus back in urban setting. I said, why I have all this knowledge and why I can't do it where I live. I live in the city, Philly, for 25 years. So, and I also see all this food insecurity issue, homeless people here and there, people struggling, going through having fresh food, fresh vegetable on their plate. I was a little bit frustrated that I have to think of something to help them. So that's where Asian Art Initiative come from, that I applied for artist in residence. They have a social practice project that hire artists to do all this social practice project around the Chinatown North neighborhood. So I went around, partner with them, and also partner with Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission, the largest homeless shelter in the city. So I spot a spot in their parking lot that it could grow. Not even there's no soil, you can grow. You can design a way that you can grow vertically, and with large planter, you could do that. And I know I could do that. And I got that project. I worked with Sunday Breakfast and Asian Art for a year, and worked with many communities, also with the men in the program in the shelter. So by working with them, design the planter, I guess that's part of the art. I do a lot of art installation. That's part of my art installation with urban farming. That's where I come from. So with fresh food grow right next to the Sunday Breakfast, it makes sense. And at the same time, I educate a lot of people who want to grow their own food around the neighborhood, school group, lots of community work, and we even did a farm to table event, restaurant, like an event on the farm side, inviting people come and.
Fantastic.
Long story short. So I started another urban farming project in kind of like in my neighborhood. also is at Union Baptist Church. They also have soup kitchen when we started off, and they also have a pretty big chunk of garden space, and that's where I started. And same thing again, recruited a lot, volunteers, community work. I'm in the community for so many years. That's why I never have a really sit down and do my art.
It seems like this is your art.
Yeah, the art is inside me, and every time I say, oh, I can do this. No, I can't. I have to do this, do that. So I have to sacrifice all that, and then later part, when I established all this, I began to have time for myself. So I began to do my art, my painting, and realized that it's great, it's okay that I do all this, because it all came back to me. Now I have this huge knowledge of what I've been doing. I did all that into my art. I put all the message in my art about the environment, the nature, the food insecurity. Even when I feel like I'm Asian, I'm a little bit different, I always feel very sensitive about this. But I figure out that growing food brings all the people together. Because when you teach people how to grow the seed grow, you don't count who is who. But people all concentrate on the growing. So that's where all the people come together. That's how I find so powerful. And it really teach me how to become an artist, how to be myself an artist now, because I know what I'm going to do with my art, because of what I'm doing.
The stories that you've told, most of it is about kind of creating opportunities yourselves or through your, those closest to you, that inner orbit. I'm curious on a more institutional level, and with the perspective of time, would you say that that's also, are more opportunities coming from on an institutional, on a larger scale level, the man, the system, the patriarchy, institutions?
For me personally, I created in the community and didn't look to universities, didn't look to establishments, but more creating an establishment. So for the past 14 years, I created with my wife, Linda, we created the Mount Airy Art Garage, which included a gallery, gift shop, studios, performance space, and it was open to the community to be a part. Everybody could be a part of that, and everybody could create it. And before that, and also working in the schools, teaching children to do murals. Very important. I think that was the most exciting, amongst the most exciting part of all of that was that we worked in Emlyn Elementary and Houston Elementary. We even worked with Chestnut Hill Academy, and we worked with a number of schools on a few projects,
Germantown Friends.
Oh, yeah, Germantown. And the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf. There were so many projects that included our local schools. And, and when we asked the children for feedback, some of them would say, well, when I first became an artist, just wonderful, wonderful experiences with the kids.
It's such a wonderful example of, working to change institutions on a local level.
Right.
And I think it's also crucial to change things on a national level.
When you can,
Yeah, so one of the things that I worked on and through the Women's Caucus for Art, which was established, that was the meeting that Diane went to, which was the founding of the Women's Caucus for Art, which were all the women who were teaching at art schools, in college art history departments, and also a lot of curators were there. And so they created the Women's Caucus for Art. So the first project was to prove discrimination on the hiring level.
Right.
So it wasn't, so that the College Art Association had a membership of, all the schools and university art history departments, studio departments. And so to change that organization and its guidelines would make a change on a national level. So we were able to persuade the College Art Association to be a partner in this, which was the first step. And we did issue a questionnaire across all of the institutions that belong, and discovered, yes, it wasn't only anecdotal, it was really discrimination. At that particular point, already in the early 1970s, women were getting half of the PhDs in art history. So there was proof that there was a pool of women who were qualified. The other thing is that it was almost 50% at art schools as well in MFA programs, not quite, 40, 48, 49%. So again, in art history departments, it was something like 4%, were women in teaching and on faculties. And in studio programs, it was worse. It was barely 1% if it was anything at all. And so we essentially proved the point, and so the guidelines from the College Art Association changed radically at that particular point. And today, 50 years later, almost 50 years later, you see women represented fully on art history and studio faculties. And then that kind of flowed over into more exhibitions for women. Then but there's still a way to go. For instance, if you look at the major institutions, I'm still going to use the word patriarchy only because it's a good shorthand word. It's still white male, for the most part.
It's about institutions, yes.
Contemporary perspective, I guess. So when I was at Tyler, I was running with my best friend Tina, who's right there. We were co-presidents of the Artists of Color Collective at Tyler, which was founded in 2015. And this is Tyler's first diversity organization, and that was our first foray into curating, and we also published multiple zines, and that was a really amazing opportunity, and was part of the reason why I applied for the position that I had at the PMA, which was the Mellon Undergraduate Curatorial Fellowship, which is a mouthful. That initiative by Mellon was started because they did a study in, I think, 2010 across all the major big museum institutions across the country with their curatorial staff, and determined that only 2% of curators were Black women. Right. And so Mellon was like, we need to do something about this. And the program that I did, it was at the PMA, but there were 4 other partner institutions. So they also had it at LACMA, the Art Institute in Kansas City, I'm gonna forget them, the Art Institute of Chicago, the High Museum in Atlanta. We had a big national convening at the end of my fellowship. Let me backtrack. So I was in the contemporary department at the PMA working with Erica Battle, who is now, I think she's still the interim head of contemporary department.
No, they just hired someone.
Okay. I'm not a news. Okay. But when I was there, it was Carlos was the head. Yeah. And so my assignments while I was there, I was working on the Nick Cave, a bunch of Nick Cave objects that hadn't been...
Lucky you.
That didn't have, what do you call it? The wall labels were just not up to date, and so we were doing a lot of research and trying to figure out. They were these small objects that were pre-sound suit. And we didn't have any information on them, so we were trying to catalog it correctly. And so we were prepping for an interview with him. Alongside that, we were working with Zoe Leonard to put Strange Fruit back on view.
Yeah, I was just wondering about Zoe Leonard.
I was working with her on that as well. And my initial experience at the PMA, to be completely honest, was not very warm and not very open. And so at this big convening, when we all got together from these different places, and we never met because we were all just talking on Zoom, they ended up coming to Philly, and we were like all staying in this one hotel, and like we had this big panel discussion during it was a week-long convening. And they all were essentially saying that Mellon thought of the program as putting us as Black women, people of color, into these spaces, as these spaces being not emotionally charged, as them being sort of blank slates, and us coming in would just automatically fix the situation, when a lot of them faced racism from the curators that were supposed to be their mentors. And a lot of them were women who were also enacting the same kind of violence as, and that experience was really eye-opening for me in terms of where institutions are now, because that was in 2022.
So Timothy was still there.
It was in between, Tim wasn't there anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your experience is echoed by a number of, there's been a lot of appointments of curators of color at different institutions, and a lot of them have quit their jobs because they're getting exactly the kind of response that you got. So there is a way to go.
Yeah.
The unifying goal has been in feminist art is to provide a place for women-centered representation and to expose the racial or absence of women and their treatment in art and beyond. But coming from a more contemporary perspective as a millennial,
You're not a Gen Z.
I was born in the 80s, not a little bit older than I look like. But yes, I think as an organization we are a little bit special. We were founded back in 1994 with a mission to promote the solidarity between Asian and African communities in Philadelphia, promoting community-based practice and underrepresented communities. So we are trying to touch on the places that hasn't been heard or visible, which is back in the 70s, the feminist movement was more centered around white women against white men, because we deeply appreciated it was needed, and then it was led by all these legendary women in this room. But now we see that there are a lot of things to be done in terms of from BIPOC community and the voices, because our experiences are definitely different from what it was in the 70s. And also as a woman, I myself feel every day the injustice as a woman, as an Asian, as an immigrant. There are a lot of layers we can touch on. So as an organization, we try to provide a place for people whose voices has less been heard, less been visible. And last year we invited the Erotic Project, led by Aubrey Costello, who is in this room. It's a artist collective between queer artists based in Philadelphia and LA and Mexico. All of them are queer artists. So that's a great example for us how we support different communities in Philadelphia. But also I wanted to introduce what we're presenting as part of Refocus this year. We're presenting a work of Victoria Shen, who is Chinese American, based in San Francisco, sound artist. The work is a sound installation. It's about how you can build your own agency as a person, not just as a woman or as a queer artist. So let me just introduce quick how we present the work. So it's 4 kites suspended from the ceiling, and we have 4 fans on the floor. So each kite flying in the air by the wind created by the fans. Yeah. But then it's they are super sensitive to the air patterns in the room. It depends on where you're standing and then how many people are in the space. The way they fly around in the air changes every minute. Wow. So you create your own experience. You engage with the work at Asian Arts. Yeah, yeah, that's one of the exhibitions we're presenting as a part of Refocus. Yeah, this is like about how you create your agency and how you engage with your work. You decide and you choose your own spatial relationship with the sound. So we're very proud of Victoria and participating in Refocus various opportunities. So it's not just about women or immigrants, but then as a person living in 2024, you be yourself, you do your thing, and yeah, you make your own art. That's how we approach voices.
How did you find the artists, which goes to your question about how artists struggle and how they show? We have two curators here, so not everyone on the panel is an artist. So how did you find this wonderful artist?
So in many ways, we sometimes do a lot of research through online in the digital world. Like Instagram, websites. Yes. I have a lot of studio visits virtually through Zoom, but also in person. If they are in Philadelphia or New York, sometimes we get a lot of proposals. They submit their proposals through our website.
My lovely wife told me back when I was working at Penn that you are miserable, so I want you to be happy. So how about you focus on your art and we'll be okay? And I'm like, well, why would you do that? Like, it just seemed, I don't know. But she said, look, my aunt is a writer and her husband said that to her. Why can't I do that for you? And I'm like, but so I'm really fortunate, but we've been together for 28 years, so I've been doing this for maybe 5 years full time, just nothing but the problem is I do have a studio to support. So I work in I have worked in a gluten-free vegan bakery and painted houses or whatever. Every now and then I will get a gig to do sound work from my other career, my other life. But yeah, I mean, clean houses, you do what you have to do so I can pay the rent on that. Somehow so far. Thank you.
There's a lot of gig economy out
there.
Well, that's another question is, are you getting like a good income from your sales to cover your overhead, your medical, the basics? Look, I'm business oriented, so. And that's, I did make sculpture for a while, and after a while it didn't support the studio, it didn't support my medical insurance, it didn't support much, so, not even the studio. So, I guess, has that changed from 1974, 50 years later? Are we seeing a little more money coming when you sell a painting or your artwork? So
well, now, black artists kind of hot, I think.
You still want it for $100.
I don't have a lot of evidence about that, but people are like, yeah, people are collecting black art now, so, I have sold more work in 2023 than ever, and I'm definitely independently supporting the studio and all the equipment that I need and tools and stuff like that. So, but and I also want to say this, and I'm not offering an answer. I think I'm offering kind of a problem that I do have Medicare, so I don't have to worry too much about that part, healthcare, but I went to a panel and they were saying, I do consider myself an emerging artist, right? And most emerging artists or people that fall into that definition are young, and the collectors look for young emerging artists because once you start collecting their work, you can kind of get in and follow their career and make money. I mean, it's a business, commodification of art, right? And so it is a struggle. I mean, I'm hanging on to. I'm an emerging artist. I'm not going to let that go. And, but
an emerging artist on Medicare.
That's a whole new category. But, but I do think a lot, like, while I'm making something, I go through a lot of questions like, why am I doing this and blah, blah. But also, I do want to sell my work. And a lot of people are like, well, just make what you want and feel good about it. And it's always this switch. It's on and off, on and off, on and off. And it's difficult.
For me, it's basically that I worked before I retired and went into my art. If I were now trying to pay my rent based on what I'm selling, I couldn't do it. The best, I have an exhibit in Atlantic City right now, and I sold 4 pieces. One piece was $1,200. But you can't count on that every month, or whatever. There's one artist that I know, he's a waiter at one restaurant. He goes to Atlantic City to work down there. He's doing the flower show. What he's doing, there's art, I don't know if I could do it, But I'm at a point now that I think that my art is going to go up as far as selling. And it's a thing that I do for me. I could not do art. I'm always I wake up in the morning with an idea. How am I going to do this when last night I couldn't figure it out? So it's in my being that I have to do art, whether I sold it or not, And I think that's why I'm where I am, because when I was making art, I got a scholarship from Cheney University. And at that point, I was 63 years old. There was no need for me to take up science or anything like that. So I took art. And that's where I learned some basics, but you don't get it in your bachelor's in art. You gotta go higher than that to get technique and all that kind of stuff. But, so I just feel that I will make it, and I'm just gonna keep plugging and keep on going, yeah.
Wonderful.
I've been through, Eleni, exactly what you've been through. Because as a community person, a lot of times I come out of my own pocket, just get some seed and this for the community. And sometimes we get grants, but sometimes we won't get grants. Sometimes community will chip in, all that. But then at the same time, I want to sell my art to support what I'm doing. Yeah. So I always, every time I have my art show, I will always announce to my community, hey, not like begging, it's like, if you can come out, tell someone or whatever, come out support me by somewhere, that will be supporting my community work. So, whether they like my artwork or not, I'm not sure. But my work, I don't know how to grade myself, but according to what I heard from everybody who's on my work, especially my painting, they have meaning in it, they have mission in it, they have message in it. So some people like that kind of stuff. So, of course, every artist are unique, will tell a different story. Not everyone will like the same thing, I understand. So also, you're right, I have a partner, my husband. Without him supporting me all this year, doing all the community while he had to work, he's actually an environment activist. He would love to do that full time. But instead, he sacrificed himself, go work, boring job, and support me. In terms of that, I do the community work. But we both love this kind of work. But in the meanwhile, I'm not 65, I can't have Medicare, like you said. So my insurance is very expensive. My husband is like, we're a low income family and we are like struggling. But every time I tell myself, if I have a roof, it's not leaking, I have a plate on my own grown vegetable, I'm not hungry, I can walk, I'm not sick, I'm falling on the bed, and I'm thankful.
You still have your gallery too, don't you? Talk about that.
Yes, because of my community work, I have this very blessed from a community of my community, one of my community gardener group that been following me gardening, farming all these years. The couple on the storefront, but it's not occupied, on South Street, ran on South Street. Woo! Everybody asks me, how you? It's because I'm blessed, because of all my community work. It actually have an answer back to me. All this years I ask myself, I do all these things. Not like I want to get back anything, because I love all these things.
Yeah.
So I say, maybe it will come. Maybe it will come one day. Maybe my dream will come one day. So this couple will say, look, I got this space. You help clean up. Yep, I can help. Painting, touch out wall, 3 weeks of work. South Street, 16th South.
16th and South.
Oh, sorry, 1538 South Street. Next to Rex.
We'll put that in our email too.
Yes. So I'm very blessed that you can take this place with very, very low rent because of all your contributing all these years. So I was like, my dream come true. I don't care. I have to scrub the floor for 3 weeks. So I
She
scrubbed
is
the
such a
floor.
good salesperson too. You have no idea.
All right, so I don't think this answered big questions. I think we opened a million questions and just gave a flavor of the kinds of concerns, the reality, the journey, the challenges, the opportunities that you're all dealing with, that we're all dealing with. And I really want to thank Arlene and all of our panelists. It's a little frustrating that we can't dig deeper, but I think that's sort of the nature of a panel, and I hope that it was thought-provoking and that you all go out into the world and put this good energy to use. And to everybody here, thank you so much for coming and spending your Saturday afternoon.